Good morning, friends. In the Commons, please come and take your seats so that we may begin our service this fine morning. Welcome to everyone. It is so good to have you all here this morning with us. Please take your seats and silence those cell phones. We're having the announcements first before the service begins. So if you want to submit an announcement, there's a basket in the back with pieces of paper, and you can bring them up to me or give them to a greeter or raise your hand and I will get them somehow. If you're online, please fill out the form that has been forwarded to you and we'll make your announcements from that. There are always announcements on the back of your bulletin, your printed order of service. We try not to repeat those verbally. The same announcements are in the email that go out every Sunday morning and more that don't fit on the back of your order of service. So with that, I'm going to give a few announcements. First of all, as you may be well aware, out in the Commons, we have some wonderful works of art. The Holiday Fair Extravaganza is today. After the service, we'll continue until 1:30 for your shopping enjoyment and pleasure. And I wanted to say that there will be some snacks so that you won't starve to death, and those will be available for you in the kitchen. So as you're shopping, you're going to grab a voucher slip and make your way around the vendors and shop for food and art and crafts and services. Select the items at each booth and have your totals added to your voucher. Then you take your voucher to the pay table and you can pay by cash, by check, or by PayPal. All of the proceeds from today's sales do not go to the artisans. They have donated their beautiful works of art for the purpose of our fellowship. Isn't that wonderful? We appreciate you all so much. So I have another announcement that was lying here for me. If you are thinking of making a funding proposal during this time that we are without a minister, and you have questions, there will be a Zoom session tomorrow. That's Monday evening at 7 p.m. Jean Basanta is right there. If you have any questions or would like to talk to him further about that, you may. So if you are a newcomer this morning, and I do see some lovely new faces, it's so nice to have you here. We extend to you a very special welcome. We're so glad that you're here. And if you'd like to know about what's going on in this fellowship 7 days a week, fill out the blue card. Give me, I say me because I'm the one on the connecting committee, and I will insert your email address into our mailing so that you'll get the bulletins in your email. And if you're online, there is a link that you can go to so that you can fill out the information there. You know what else? Current members can change their addresses and phone numbers if that happens too by using that blue card, and we will update your information for you. Since we're here in a time of ministry and covenant, we are asking that we hold all applause until the end of the service. Jazz hands can work if you feel so moved. We can thank everyone for their contributions at the end of the service, so thank you for that. Today is Transgender Day of Remembrance. I now invite Alex Waller and Heather O'Malley to tell us about Transgender Day of Remembrance.
Hello, I'm Alex. My pronouns are he, him. The UUA released an interfaith statement in support of trans, intersex, and non-binary people on November 12th, 2025. It says, transgender, non-binary, and intersex people are vulnerable today. Our faith, our theologies, and our practices of prophetic witness call on us to say with one voice, you are holy, you are sacred, we love you, we support you.
The Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is recognized on the 20th of November, was started to recognize transgender individuals who have died over the last year. Usually it is due to violence or suicide rather than natural causes. This year in the United States, there were 47 deaths, and 19 of them were by suicide. The horrible rhetoric that's coming out of the administration is no doubt part of the reason for so many suicides. So we will begin with the reading of the names. Tiara Love, Tori Jackson, violence. Scarlett, suicide. Blaze Alexander Bal Mason, suicide. Blake Sturm, suicide. Robin James Post, suicide. Cassie Rhea, violence. Onyx Cornish, violence.
Aurora, Pellegrina, Alex Luna, uncategorized. Blair A. Sawyer, violence. Rosa Achua, violence. Dream Johnson, violence. Artie Cassidy Beowulf Gibson, suicide. Nathaniel Pabon Cruz, nada, suicide. Kamora Woods, violence. Kia Lee Tabitha Roberts, suicide. Gabriel McEwen Cam, suicide.
Lily Dawn Harkins, suicide. Christina Hayes, violence. JJ Godberry, violence. Emma Slabak, suicide. Laura Schuler, violence. Hope Leica Youngblood, violence. Jax Grattan, uncategorized. Tessa June, suicide. Jonathan Joss, violence. Charlotte Fosgate, suicide. Carmen Wells, violence. Shaparius Dupree, violence.
Kelsey Elam, violence. Nora Horwitz, custodial. Katoria Lacynthia Banks Kai, violence. Caitlin Renetta Benoit, suicide. Jordan J.J. May, suicide. Linda Becerra Morin, violence. Amir Dior, violence. Irviana Johnson, violence. Sam Norquist, violence.
Tahiri Broom, violence. Aubrey Dameron, violence. Elsa Ray Shoup, suicide. Parker Savarese, suicide. Johnny Adamau, violence. Mika Shabazz, suicide. Cam Thompson, violence. Aziza Barnes, also known as Z, suicide. Roy Mora, suicide. Relacia Wright, violence. And we also remember all those whose names we don't have, who have passed. Please share with me in a moment of silence for them. Thank you.
I invite us all to take a nice cleansing breath. And as you exhale, find peace for those families. Welcome, my friends, to the Carbondale Unitarian Fellowship, located on the unceded traditional lands of the first people of present-day Southern Illinois, the Miamia, Osage, Kaskaskia, and Quapaw. The fellowship is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, sharing the good news of Unitarian Universalism with folks throughout the region. Our good news is a message of love, freedom, reason, respect, and justice as the basis for religious community. I'm Linda Linson. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a member of the Congregational Connections team, the Committee on Shared Ministry and Reproductive Justice and Social Action Committees. And this morning, I am your Sunday service facilitator. It is lovely to be with you. We are a congregation of open minds and hearts, all ages, all colors, all genders, all abilities, all kinds of wealth, all kinds of love. Now I invite those of us who are online to select gallery view so that we can wave at each other, connecting our congregations over space. Currently, KEF is a lay-led with the Saturday service team planning our services using the rich spirit and many talents of our congregation's members and friends. In addition to members, services may include guest speakers and ministers. And this year, we will also join with our friends at the Church of the Good Shepherd for some special Sunday services. Join us on Sunday morning or at our Wednesday evening Vespers on Zoom as we continue our search for a new minister. Now let us center ourselves with the music of the prelude.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Betty. Thank you, Consequence. Thank you, silence. How about you, John? How about how good it feels to finally forgive you? Thank you, India. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Freddie. Thank you, Consequence. Thank you, silence. It was the moment I got more than I could handle. happiness. Thank you, clarity. Thank you, silence.
And we thank you for that beautiful piece of music. Our chalice reading is Blessed is the Match by Hannah Sensish. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that burns in the heart's secret places. Blessed is the heart with strength to stop its beating for honor's sake. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Our chalice is lit, and now with intention, Charles puts a pebble in our bowl of water, letting it ripple out beyond our knowing. All are invited to do the same here at the fellowship or at home to mark a joy, sorrow, or any other feeling you may have during the musical parts of our service. Now is the time in our service that we share sorrows and joys in fellowship. To Cuff, and you may also donate online via PayPal. The link is in the chat and in your order of service. Use the check memo area or the note area in PayPal if you wish to specify a contribution to the Rainbow Cafe. Also remember that your spare change makes a difference. All the coins collected during the offering are sent to the UUA Annual Program Fund, which provides important resources to UU congregations, including ours. Please join me now in our unison offering reading, which is printed in your order of service and on the screen. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Your contributions in all forms are gratefully received.
Decided sitting down for credence probably wasn't a good idea. So we'll do the standing up today. So some of y'all be wondering why what I guess would be considered a protest song for Veterans Remembrance. But if you think about and listen to the lyrics that John Fogerty wrote, this is about respecting veterans and understanding that the rich don't send their kids, they don't go. It's the poor and it's the underprivileged and everybody else that ends up fighting these wars. And so that's what John Fogerty was talking about. So in recognition of the veterans that do fight these wars for everybody else, then that's what this song's about. Some folks born made to wave the flag, ooh, red, white, and blue. And when the band plays hail to the chief, ooh, they point the cannon at you, Lord. It ain't me, I ain't no senator's son. It ain't me, I ain't no fortunate one. No, Some folks are born silver spoon in hand. Ooh, the red light, oh, they do help themselves. Oh. But when the tax man comes to the door, Lord, the house looking like a rummage sale, yeah. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no millionaire son, no. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one, no. Some folks inherit star-spangled eyes. Ooh, they send you down the wall, Lord. And when you ask them how much should we give, ooh, they only answer more, more, more. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no military son, son. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one, one. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one, no. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate son.
Thank you, Tim. Now we have the great honor to hear from some of our very own veterans and what they have to speak about on Veterans Day. So we'll start with Tim Hoke, and then Bill will come up, and then Heather and Charles, in that order.
All right, I'm glad I'm getting all of this out of the way at one time. All right, so let me set I'm actually going to set a timer because if y'all have heard me talk before, you know it goes long. All right, notes. So what I wanted to talk about this morning from my perspective as a veteran is something that's always been a thing with me in my service, and it's the cognitive dissonance of a liberal veteran. And it started very early when I first joined the Army when I was 19 years old. Growing up here at Carbondale, I was definitely one of the liberal kids that grew up in town. I had liberal parents and lived on this side of town, went to that school. And so this is how I was raised, and these are the kind of things that we grew up with. My first little crew of friends actually had we were skater kids, and we actually had a group called the Peaceful Environmentally Aware Skaters, the Peas Posse. So you can imagine, as a member of said Peas Posse, as we grew older and got into high school and everyone's starting to figure out what they want to do with their lives, this was not certainly my first choice. So I went to school, was a lost 18-year-old, and then I turned into a lost 19-year-old, came back to Carbondale, was failing out of school, and then decided, and for some reason, still don't exactly know, I was living in a trailer park, I was managing a Little Caesars, and just laying in bed one night, apoplectic about my future, and then out of nowhere, joined the Army. It just was clear as day. Don't know why. And so it was not in line necessarily with what I thought that my values may or may not have been at that point in time. But the clarity of that voice in my head and the idea that it was going to set me up for something else was what it was. So I took that chance and went, and then decided to use my, research skills to find the one job in the Army I could justify to my mom and dad or anybody else. First, it had to be something that was unlikely to get me killed, or where I would be in a situation where I'd have to kill somebody else, because that was certainly not something I was willing to do, ironically. And then something that I could convince my mother that was worth the time intellectually. So they actually had a program at the time, this is 1997, where you could get $50,000 for college. Illinois paid for all of your tuition after you got back, and then you got a stipend on top of that.
And the Army was willing to send me to Monterey, California, to a language school to learn Russian. And that's all I was going to do for a whole year. And then I got to go live in Europe. So all of these things keep building up in my mind of these positives, these things about our service that to each of us as a veteran who looks back on those positive aspects can take all of that and it can be very meaningful for us. But then those of us who have some of the more, I guess, ethical qualms with some of the things that we've seen and done, then it takes on a different tone sometimes. And especially when those things that you've seen and done have the impact of leaving you with scars, whether they are physical or mental. And then you have to decide at some point then, as you deal with those scars, were they worth it? Did what I decide to do that may or may not have been in line with my values have meaning to somebody else? Did we do any good? And so, at least for myself, I know that I can look back and know that, at least in a few instances, our peacekeeping missions in Kosovo, where we were actually working for the UN, the word peace was literally in the thing. We could, there was something about that where you could feel good about it. And there was some sense of helping. And then my time in Iraq was not that, where you find that we have destroyed a country just for the sake of selling it back to them. And you find yourself in that situation and you have to make another choice. So my resignation of my commission as an officer happened while I was still in Iraq. I told my commanding officer, I told my CO, I said, I'll finish this and then I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And then I spent the next 15 years then working in the Department of Defense trying to do the same justification. So the message that I carry with me today then is that when you think about our veterans, there are so many from so many wars, World War II, Vietnam, where you had a righteous cause. You had, or in the case of Vietnam, you didn't have a choice. You were sent, you were made to go. But in some of our cases, especially the latter veterans from the last, 15, 20 years, especially when we don't have a righteous cause, we have to make some choices. So I just wanted to share this morning about some of the challenges of those choices that I had to make and to let you know that that service and that time was transformative, if not, the most morally, what's the right word? Impactful. So thank you for listening this morning and continue to share time with veterans and learn some more about all of their stories. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I got a lot out of that. I don't know if anybody else did, but I enjoyed it. My talk today is called The Accidental Veteran. The truth is, I was a very confused young man. I didn't know what I wanted. I was accepted both at the Air Force Academy and at Yale. I finally chose the Air Force Academy when my parents revealed to me that despite our upper middle class lifestyle, we were basically broke. That's not funny. Anyway, at the academy, I studied military history. I participated in war games. And I learned how to survive in the mountains in a mock POW camp where we were forced to chant, "We love Ho for the rice he grow." After several days of that, I didn't love Ho, and I definitely didn't love rice. I wanted to major in astrodynamics because who wouldn't want to learn about the stars and the planets or become an astronaut? But after 2 years of rigorous math and engineering courses, I hated those subjects. So instead, I majored in psychology. I wanted to help traumatized soldiers, and I wanted to understand my older sister. Not funny. So, some of this is supposed to be humor, so it's okay. It's okay if you laugh, okay? Yes, there is some seriousness here, but okay. I got good grades the old-fashioned way, brute force memorization. I could recite entire chapter outlines far better than I could explain them. After 2 additional semesters at graduate school, however, my friend was chosen to help traumatized soldiers, and I was chosen to become a human performance engineer. The Air Force hoped I would improve pilot performance by designing better cockpits. Instead, I was trying to improve my own performance through the use of some disreputable chemicals of that day. Oh, thank you for laughing that time. I guess you all related to that. Like many Americans in the early 1970s, I had become uneasy about the war. Growing up, I'd been influenced by Gandhi and Einstein, 2 advocates of nonviolence. So I made a decision, and after 2 years and lots of paperwork, I was discharged as a conscientious objector. It wasn't easy. I lost friendships, but I was true to myself. Leaving the Air Force didn't end my search for meaning. I then joined Scientology and became a staff member. So Air Force Academy, conscientious objector, Scientology. I'm sure that confused a lot of resume reviewers. Scientology has some, shall I say, unusual beliefs. But to their credit, they taught me how to actually apply my education by using a dictionary to look up all the words I had memorized and ground them in the real world. To my great embarrassment, this took 3 painstaking years and the use of 10 different dictionaries. But at the end, what do you know? I actually understood astrodynamics, mathematics, and engineering. And not only that, I now like them. Ironically, at that point, I also had an urge to be a general. It's true. But I'd burnt that bridge rather thoroughly. Leaving Scientology, I taught in the inner city of Los Angeles for 35 years, mostly substitute teaching in middle schools. Yeah, this was a different kind of battlefield. The airplanes were made of paper, and the projectiles were spitballs. But students' needs were enormous, and the tools I used, tough love and grounding every subject in the real world, came from both the Air Force and Scientology there. My reward wasn't money. My reward was hearing a student say to me one day, "Mr. Lauritzen, because of you, I quit a gang. Excuse me. I will always remember you." My last 5 years, I taught psychology at a community college as an adjunct, and that's where I learned something profound and also shocking. I was one of the 5 great apes. An ape that could talk and read and write. So maybe that explains some of my decisions and some of humanity's. But I still didn't understand my older sister. During the Great Recession, I lost my psychology teaching job and could find no employment, probably due to my resume. And so for 8 years, I taught English to Chinese university students in Xiamen City, Fujian province. Ironically, in Los Angeles, I had students who could pronounce the words but didn't know the meanings. In China, I had students who knew the meanings of the words but couldn't pronounce them. I thought if I could just bring the two of them together, I would have some great English students. But that was before Zoom. Okay. Now, 50 years later, I'm no longer a confused young man. I'm a confused old man. But over that time, I've probably thought about this question more than most people. Is war ever good? My answer, and I'm being somewhat serious here, is that limited warfare may have the unintended consequence of better preparing humanity for an alien invasion. Think about it. More immediately, if my nation were threatened today like it was during 9/11, I would find a way to serve within the bounds of my conscience. So I don't judge those who serve. I respect them. And for now, for me, service means writing books about what I've learned. As a veteran of the Air Force, a veteran of Scientology, a veteran of teaching middle school in the inner city. And by the way, ironically, of course, I never saw combat in the Air Force, but when I was teaching in the middle school, I witnessed a student being shot by a gang. So I did see some combat. And a veteran of teaching in China. So I'm grateful to be a member of this congregation and be here with other vets, all of us serving in the best way we know how. Thank you.
Hello. Heather O'Malley. I'm on the welcoming committee among things I do. And I was a military brat. My father was a foreign area officer for Russia. And so I'm very familiar with Monterey. And we traveled around and it was cool. And in a classic bit of military inbreeding, I decided I want to follow in my father's footsteps. But because I didn't have a college degree, just only about 170 credit hours, I decided I have no applicable skills to anything, so I'll join the Army. And I became an Arabic linguist. They sent me off to Monterey, and we were actually there at the same time because I was there from 96 to 98. Yeah. So we may have seen each other, who knows? Yeah. So I did my time training there, and it was, interesting. And then while I was serving with the 101st Airborne, I realized I was trans. And it was a realization to the point where I couldn't bury it anymore because I'd had a couple of times where I was like, oh, hey, yeah. And I was like, oh, no, can't do that. Just shove it back down. So that was fun. And it was a scary time to realize you were trans while you were serving in the military because don't ask, don't tell was still the law of the land. And to add that to that, I was on base working as an Arabic linguist when Barry Winchell was beaten to death outside of his base housing, his base apartment, because he was dating a trans woman named Calpurnia Adams. Calpurnia Adams had been in the Navy. She served in Gulf One as a combat medic for a Marine unit. She was a devil dog. And that was kind of traumatic because I'm like, oh, hey, my identity, who I am, can get me killed. And what makes it even more kind of messed up is our unit was preparing to go onto a field training exercise with that unit. So literally, we were planning to go spend 30 days in the woods playing army with people who had, just killed someone. And needless to say, the army was like, this is a bad idea. No one's going out and playing army right now. We're going to deal with this. And it did lead to getting rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So some good did come out of that. So when I got out of the army on a medical discharge, I learned about the various service and sacrifice that trans people have done throughout the history of this country. In 1782, Deborah Sampson disguised herself as a man going by the name of Robert Shirtliff to serve in the Continental Army. They ran messages, including to General Washington. Albert Cashier fought in more than 40 engagements with the Union Army. And after getting injured in the 40th engagement, was discovered they were born female. And because of that, the military used the term being cashiered out. So any military vets who may have heard that, that's where it comes from. A trans individual who served, got found out, and kicked out. And then you have Kathy Williams, a Black woman who changed her look and her name to William Kathy and was the only Black woman to ever serve with the Buffalo Soldiers out west. Then you have someone a bit more well-known. Christine Jorgensen was a soldier in World War II and decided, I need to transition. So in Europe, transitioned through hormone and surgical interventions, which for people who don't know, that surgery was first used in 1930. So clearly it's a very new and unpracticed thing. So yeah, she came home, became a celebrity, and people would go to see her perform, partially because it was the GI turned blonde bombshell, as headlines would say. Another person some people might have heard of is Monica Helms. She served in the Navy as a submariner in the 70s. She is also known as the person who invented the trans flag. Then you have someone, Bree Fram, who was currently serving, was a colonel who served first in the Air Force and then in Space Force, and was, until all trans people got fired, the highest ranking trans officer in the military. And so she was discharged due to this administration's anti-trans orders. And so this administration also says that trans military individuals and trans veterans are dishonorable by definition, because we aren't going by the gender we were born and the name we were given. So apparently anyone who changes their name for any reason is dishonorable by that definition. So that's helpful. And, I may not have been the best soldier, but I did serve honorably. I even won a few medals for my work. And I endured harassment because I was a pagan. A lot of harassment. And I knew that if I found out I was trans, I would have been dishonorably discharged in a heartbeat. So thankfully, I got my medical discharge And once I began out processing, I began my transition. So the first year of my transition, I was at a conference for the International Foundation for Gender Education that was being held in Nashville, Tennessee. And I met Monica Helms, and we bonded over our military service. She and another friend, Angela Brightfeather, who had been a drill sergeant in the 60s and 70s, the two of them founded the Transgender American Veterans Association to help transgender veterans get gender-affirming care from the VA. I was there at the meeting where they decided to do that. That's as close as I got to that awesome moment. They were like, yes, let's do this. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. And they went off and did it, and I went home. Clearly, I'm on top of things. Though I did get dragged into Tava shortly thereafterwards because they were like, hey, you need to get on board. And I'm like, okay. And so I first joined as the special projects director. I helped arrange trips to see the wall and give wreaths at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And that started my 20-year history with the Transgender American Veterans Association. They're 21 years old, so I mean, there was literally a very short gap where I wasn't involved. And I'm now working as the secretary for that organization. Service to veterans, the people of our country, and for the betterment of this nation is one of the things that drive me, this service. I want our country to be better, to do better. I swore an oath, and that oath was never rescinded. When you leave, they don't say, oh, hey, that oath is done. Have a nice day. You swear to serve and defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And they never say, that oath is done. And many of us still hold to that. I served, and I continue to serve. And for all the pain and suffering my time in the Army gave me, it did help me focus on how to help others. And I do that by serving here in the congregation, nationally with Tava, and writing books where many of my main characters are trans military veterans. It's what I can do, and I still don't think it's enough, but I try. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank the veterans that have spoke today, Tim, Heather, Bill, and I know there's others, so maybe in another year we'll have another group come up here. It had been a while since we had a Veterans Day celebration here. Last time I can recall I had done it, it was in around 2008. And I spoke with Thornton Douglas, who I'll mention here in a second, and another person that I'm not sure who it was, probably Jack Hayward or someone like that. But it had been time for us to have another Veterans Day service. So I've told my story of being a paratrooper back in the day and going to Afghanistan and serving and thinking about the greater good and helping my fellow man out. And I don't want to repeat all that. So what I want to do is try and connect our current membership with some of our extended and even sadly passed on veterans who have graced these halls through the years. So some remembrance here. They represent multiple generations of dutiful service to this nation, its allies, and many of our federal agencies. Going back a few years to our largely past World War II, the greatest generation, I remember my good friend and fellow paratrooper, Bob Lemke. Lois, his wife's work is out there for sale. Bob Lemke was a big bear of a man who was our original Jerry Malumbi. If you remember, he did everything in this building. He was the boiler man from the Illinois Central Railroad. He was our original Jerry. Bob survived combat jumps on D-Day and later survived the Battle of the Bulge, and then came here to be a Unitarian and was a great leader. Another one from that generation, Dave Christensen, was an Air Force loadmaster that ferried the brass around North Africa and the Mediterranean during the European theater of war. He said once that he was no kind of hero. All he did was just fit generals in their seats and tie them down and get them ready, and they'd go fly off. But he said, I never really did anything great as a service member. Thornton Douglas, another member, he's a local boy from Dutch Ridge, just down the road, a conscientious objector as well, who served as a medic. He went ashore in Omaha Beach on D-Day and saw terrible things, patched together wounded troops through the end of the war. Reverend Jack Hayward was a Navy chaplain. He went ashore on numerous island invasions across the Pacific, and particularly on Iwo Jima, where he said every Marine in a foxhole was either a believer or a praying man, because under those circumstances, there are no atheists in foxholes. I remember also our good friend Ed Phillips, who died just seemingly a short time ago. He was a Navy diver and unexploded ordnance man. I know our dear friend Susie Phillips remembers her young sailor with interest. Also of that same generation, our Norwegian friend Chris Jewell was he was a forced commando and saboteur of the occupying Nazi forces and loved to tell stories of his shenanigans skiing across the vast tundra of Norway. And finally, I have to thank our friend Jess Job next door for this name. I knew Russ Trimble and Natalie's daughter served in the Foreign Service, but I did not remember Russ Trimble. And I asked Dr. Bazanta just before this. He was a 10th Mountain soldier in the Italian campaign and took on the paratroopers of the Nazis at Monte Cassino. So Russ Trimble and their daughter continues to serve in the Foreign Diplomatic Service. So we're quickly losing that older generation of freedom fighters, but in our speakers and other members of our fellowship, I know we have strong leaders for our future, all excellent role models for our young folk. I want to thank Tim, Bill, and Heather for sharing their personal stories with us today. Every veteran has a story worth listening to, and I hope that each of you makes some small effort to honor a veteran in your family, workplace, or friends groups. I hope each of you takes one lesson away from today's veteran service and reflects on that lesson for the week. I also want to thank my co-presenters. Were it not for their capacity to freely share their experience, we would be the poor in understanding these ongoing issues. I would also like to thank the Sunday Services Committee, particularly our friend Gilletta Brandt, for encouraging today's service. So that's all I really have to say. Pass it to you, Linda.
Thank you. Now we'll have some more music. Isn't that wonderful? Thank you, Colleen and Laura.
Home is where I want to be. Pick me up and turn me round. I feel numb, was born with a weak heart. I guess we must be having fun. The less we say about it, the better. We'll make it up as we go along. Feet on the ground, head in the sky. It's okay, I know nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. We got plenty of time. You got light in your eyes. You're standing here beside me. I love the passing of time. Never for money, always for love. Cover up and say goodnight. Say goodnight. Home is where I want to be, but I guess I'm already there. I feel home, she's lifted up her wings. I guess that this must be the place. And I can't tell one from another. Did I find you or you find me? There was a time before we were born. If someone asks, this is where I'll be, where I'll be. We're drifting in and out, singing to my mouth. Out of all those kinds of people, you got a face with a view. And I'm just an animal looking for a home and to share the same space for a minute or two. And you love me till my heart stops. Love me till I'm dead. As that light up, I see through you. Cover up the blank spots, hit me on the head. I go, ooh.
Well, now you've been holding back the claps and we get to do it. So here we go. I'd like to thank everyone who made this service possible, which includes everyone here and on Zoom. Thanks to Tim Hoke, Bill Lauritzen, Heather O'Malley, and Charles Ruffner for sharing their stories with us today. I loved the variety. It was just rich with variety. Thank you for your service. Thanks to Alex and Heather for sharing Transgender Day of Remembrance. Those names out there are so important. Thank you, Laura Van Abema and Colleen Springer Lopez, for taking your time to share your talents with us this morning. And Joletta, our AV host, who got all the screenshots right. Yay. Thanks to Jean and Alex for their greeting and surveillance out there in the lobby. And thanks To all of you for sharing your time with us today. It has been wonderful. And now you can get your pocketbooks out. Are you so excited? We have a benediction first, and I don't want to spoil the mood, so don't get too excited yet. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Oh, I say that. Please rise as you are willing and able and hold hands or hold your palms out for our benediction. This is called Bless Us with Peace by Gates of Repentance.
O source of peace, lead us to peace, a peace profound and true. Lead us to a healing, to master all that drives us to war within ourselves and with others. May our deeds inscribe us in the book of life and blessing, righteousness, and peace. O source of peace, bless us with peace.
Blessed be, amen. Go in peace with love for justice.
Great music too.